Hey, Ron here from Military Images Magazine. Welcome to a new episode of Life on the Civil War Research Trail. Today, I want to talk about the photograph you see here. It's a portrait of William Rufus Terrill. I added this to my collection, and I'm very excited to do the research about his life and his military service. Those of you who are students of the Civil War, you're familiar with the very basics of his story. He was a West Point graduate. There he roughed it up with Phil Sheridan, got in a bayonet fight, graduated in 1853. And when the Civil War came around, secession and the Civil War, this loyal Virginian remained in the U.S. Army rather than go off and fight for his home state, which makes him a bit unusual. Only 44 of 126 Virginia-born West Point graduates remained loyal to the North. And so this was a source of consternation to his family, particularly his father and his two sons. He was basically disowned, cast out of the family, and they were finished with him. Now, Terrill is not a name that, if you're not a Civil War student, you probably don't know him as well. The name that you know is the Rock of Chickamauga, George H. Thomas. He is one of those other 44 who remained Union loyal. So Terrill has my interest because he's just not as well known. And if you know him, whether it's because of his Virginia connection or his West Point connection, the Phil Sheridan fight, if you don't know him for that, you know him for the Battle of Perryville, Kentucky. He went on to become a brigadier general after remaining in the U.S. Army, and he was killed there at Perryville from a round of artillery in the middle of the battle while he was rallying the infantry. It wasn't going well for him and his troops, and he dies in the middle of this action. So as I was doing the research and getting familiar with his story, the thought occurred to me, how was he remembered in newspapers of that time in the North and the South? And so I found examples that I want to share with you. And the first one is a Northern newspaper. This is perhaps not expected. What I'm going to read to you, this quote, is fairly typical of officers, generals. In fact, any soldier who was in the Union Army and died for the cause will normally get a patriotic write-up. And so this particular obituary includes a quote written by him. And here's what it says, quote, "The Union cause to which I have devoted my life has nothing but honor to endear it. And it has no terror but that of death, which a soldier must always expect. The rebellion, however, offers nothing but dishonor and disgrace, and I shall adhere to the flag of the Union and give my life, if necessary, in support of the legally constituted government of the United States." It's a powerful quote from a Virginian, and you can be sure that he was very aware of his brethren and other fellow graduates from West Point who went with their home state for the Confederate Army. The obituary goes on, whoever wrote this report, the name of the individual isn't stated, but there's a quote at the conclusion of the obituary that says, "General Terrill has now fallen. He died in the holy cause to which he had devoted himself, and he leaves behind him no nobler patriot or truer gentleman." So that's the Northern perspective. The Southern perspective comes to us as preserved by the Stanton Spectator in Stanton, Virginia. It's a relatively short obituary, and it basically announces his death at about age 31. It mentions his service in the pre-war U.S. Army, including his graduation from West Point. It talks about a connection to Jeb Stuart. talks about him being a good scholar, all of the things that you would normally expect an obituary of a successful West Point graduate to talk about. It goes on at the end to offer this commentary, which is definitely decidedly from a Confederate perspective. Here's the quote from the obit from the Stanton, Virginia Spectator. "He sleeps now in the warrior's grave, and I only regret that he could not have given his life in a better cause. He was an amiable, intelligent, and courteous gentleman. How a native-born Virginian could become a traitor to the South is a mystery I cannot solve. His brothers are in the Confederate service. One is a colonel, and both are zealous in the good cause." So, interesting stuff. Perhaps unexpected, getting a very northern perspective for his obituary from those who were loyal to the Union Army, and in the South, viewing him as a traitor, yet respecting him as a product of Virginia. So there you have it. Today's Life on the Civil War Research Trail. We'll see you the next time right here. Until then, take care.